What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Let's get right into it. Nassourdine Imavov has proposed an interim middleweight title fight against Sean Strickland, arguing that the matchup makes the most sense given the current uncertainty surrounding the division. According to Imavov, the middleweight division needs activity, while champion Khamzat Chimaev remains inactive and continues discussing a potential move up to the light heavyweight division. Chimaev captured the middleweight title in August 2025, but has yet to defend it. Recently, he has openly talked about competing at 205 pounds, which has created uncertainty about the future of the 185-pound division. Imavov believes that an interim title bout between himself and Strickland would keep the division moving while the champion decides his next step. Imavov, currently considered one of the top contenders at middleweight, says the fight would not only make competitive sense, but would also generate strong interest from fans. The two fighters previously met years ago, with Strickland winning a decision. However, Imavov insists the outcome would be very different if they fought again today. The French contender explained that he has grown significantly as a fighter since that loss. He believes he is now far more mature, well-rounded, and confident, especially after his recent run of strong performances. Imavov says he is ready to prove that he has evolved into a completely different competitor. Beyond the sporting aspect, Imavov also suggested that the rivalry between the two fighters could make the build-up especially intense. While he usually avoids excessive trash talk, he admitted that his feelings towards Strickland are personal. According to Imavov, some comments Strickland previously made about his religion were disrespectful, and he has not forgotten them. Because of that history, Imavov believes a fight between them would deliver fireworks not only inside the cage, but also during the promotional build-up. In his view, an interim title fight between him and Strickland would be a major event that keeps the middleweight division active while the champion's future is sorted out. Before we continue, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with all our latest content. Moving on to another news. Khamzat Chimaev has recently found himself back in the headlines, with growing questions surrounding his willingness to defend the UFC middleweight title. The situation has sparked debate across the MMA community, particularly after conflicting reports about a potential title defense earlier this year. The controversy began about 2 months ago when Ali Abdelaziz revealed during an appearance on Submission Radio that Chimaev did not plan to fight again before the end of the year. This statement was surprising because Dana White had publicly expressed interest in seeing the champion defend his belt once more before the calendar year concluded. As a result, attention quickly shifted toward a potential early 2026 title defense, with January or February emerging as the most likely window. At the time, Nassourdine Imavov was widely considered the next challenger for the middleweight title. However, the anticipated matchup quietly fell apart, and Chimaev's team initially offered no explanation for why negotiations stalled. The first insight into the situation came from Chimaev's close friend Aslambek Badayev, who spoke on the Russian channel Usha Taika. According to him, Chimaev had actually hoped to defend his title in February before the start of Ramadan, but the UFC allegedly declined the proposal. That explanation raised questions, but the situation became even more complicated when Imavov shared his own version of events. Imavov stated that his discussions with the UFC indicated the promotion was ready to book the fight in February. According to him, the delay came from Chimaev's side, suggesting the champion declined the early 2026 title defense. Timing has further complicated matters. Because of Ramadan, Chimaev is unlikely to compete in March or April, meaning any potential return could be pushed to May or June. Despite the uncertainty, Imavov said he holds no personal animosity toward Chimaev. The two fighters know each other well, share mutual friends, and have even trained together in the past. Still, with growing attention from fans and their home region in the Caucasus, pressure continues to build for the long-anticipated matchup to finally take place. Moving on to another news. A chaotic scene unfolded at the Hype Brazil event when Arman Tsarukyan and Carlos Prates became involved in a heated brawl during a press conference ahead of the promotion's grappling card. The altercation broke out during the traditional pre-fight face-offs, which are usually intended to build anticipation for upcoming matchups. However, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. What began as a tense stare-down escalated into shoving and punches, forcing security to rush in as the room descended into chaos. Witnesses described the moment as a full melee, with multiple people stepping in to separate the fighters. Despite the disorder, Prates appeared energized by the confrontation. He was seen smiling and looking excited throughout the incident, seemingly enjoying the intense atmosphere that had developed on stage. Tsarukyan, on the other hand, appeared far less interested in escalating the situation. Observers noted that he tried to step back and avoid further confrontation as tensions rose. While the situation had already gotten out of hand, Tsarukyan's body language suggested he preferred to de-escalate rather than engage in a prolonged altercation. This incident adds to what has recently been a series of heated moments surrounding Tsarukyan. Just 1 week earlier, he was involved in another viral confrontation during a wrestling event known as RAF 6 in Arizona. That scuffle quickly spread across social media and sparked debate among fans about the increasing number of physical altercations taking place outside of official fights. The drama also arrives at a time when the lightweight division is already generating significant discussion. Fighters and fans alike have been reacting to the recently announced matchup between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje, a fight that has quickly become one of the most talked about bookings in the division. As tensions continue to rise, both inside and outside the cage, moments like this press conference brawl only add to the growing intensity surrounding the lightweight landscape. Moving on to another news. Colby Covington has openly criticized the lineup for the upcoming UFC White House card, saying he is far from impressed with the fights that have been announced so far. The criticism comes shortly after Bo Nickal revealed that he had hoped to face Covington on the historic card. According to Nickal, he attempted to secure a matchup with the former interim welterweight champion, but Covington declined the opportunity. As a result, Nickal is now scheduled to face Kyle Dokos instead. Speaking in an interview with MMA Junkie, Covington did not hold back in his assessment of the event. He described the fight card as disappointing and poorly organized, claiming that fans have already voiced their frustration with the current lineup. Covington pointed out that early discussions about the event suggested it could feature 6 or 7 title fights. However, the finalized lineup includes only one undisputed championship bout and an interim title fight that was reportedly assembled at the last minute. According to him, the situation reflects a lack of planning and preparation behind what is supposed to be a historic event. He also criticized the lack of prominent American fighters on the card, especially given the symbolic setting of the event. The card is intended to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States, and Covington questioned why more high-profile American athletes were not included to represent the country on such a significant occasion. According to Covington, the promotion appears less focused on delivering a stacked lineup now that it has secured major business deals and financial success. In his view, the organization may be prioritizing its commercial achievements over creating the most exciting possible event for fans. Meanwhile, Nickal continues to stay active in the combat sports conversation. During a recent appearance on the Pound for Pound podcast, he issued a new challenge to former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman, proposing a wrestling match at the upcoming Real American Freestyle event. Moving on to another news. Bo Nickal recently discussed potential matchups and behind-the-scenes negotiations during an appearance on his podcast, where he also issued a challenge to Kamaru Usman for a possible wrestling showdown. During the conversation, Nickal mentioned that he had previously told Colby Covington that the only way he would agree to compete on the upcoming UFC White House card was if the two of them fought each other. However, according to Nickal, Covington declined the matchups, which ultimately prevented the fight from being added to the card. Nickal explained that his discussions with the UFC suggested the promotion was interested in booking the bout. According to him, the UFC reportedly told Covington that if he wanted a place on the White House card, he would need to face Nickal. The promotion allegedly presented Covington with a straightforward choice: accept the fight against Nickal and be part of the historic event, or decline and miss out on the opportunity. Nickal claimed Covington ultimately chose not to take the fight, deciding it was better for him to stay off the card rather than accept the matchup. While Nickal did not criticize Covington directly, he speculated that financial factors may have played a role in the decision. He suggested that Covington might have been looking for a higher payday to accept such a risky fight. From Nickal's perspective, the UFC likely offered the terms already outlined in Covington's contract and may not have been willing to increase the compensation. As a result, the negotiations never progressed. Nickal said he understands the situation from a business standpoint, acknowledging that fighters naturally want to maximize their value and earnings. However, he also emphasized that competing at a historic venue like the White House carries its own significance and prestige. In addition to discussing the Covington situation, Nickal also floated the idea of a wrestling match with Usman, saying it would be an exciting matchup for fans and a chance for both athletes to showcase their wrestling roots in a competitive setting. Moving on to another news. Conor McGregor recently responded to Ariel Helwani regarding Helwani's analysis of McGregor's potential UFC return, seemingly agreeing with the perspective shared. Helwani, on his YouTube channel, highlighted McGregor's legendary timing as a key factor in his career success. He pointed to the 2017 boxing match against Floyd Mayweather, which occurred shortly after the sale of the UFC. According to Helwani, the timing of that fight was strategically perfect, allowing both McGregor and the promotion to capitalize on significant attention and revenue. Similarly, Helwani praised McGregor's McGregor's ability to orchestrate high-profile UFC fights, such as the Madison Square Garden event, underscoring his impeccable sense of timing at critical moments. Helwani then connected this skill to the current landscape, noting recent controversies surrounding the UFC White House card and the canceled Jon Jones fight. He suggested that McGregor is now in a position to leverage the situation, potentially returning to compete during the July 11th international fight. Helwani observed that McGregor has remained unusually quiet on social media, which he interpreted as a positive sign that negotiations and discussions about his return went favorably. McGregor himself engaged with Helwani's commentary on X, writing, "Precision beats power and timing beats speed," seemingly affirming Helwani's focus on timing as a strategic advantage in his career. Helwani speculated that McGregor and the UFC appear aligned on a potential July fight, though the opponent remains undecided. While names like Nate Diaz and Max Holloway have been suggested, Helwani noted that audience interest and fight logistics will play a major role in finalizing the matchup. He emphasized that McGregor's return to the Octagon, regardless of the opponent, would be widely celebrated by fans and could generate substantial attention for the promotion. Overall, McGregor's measured response and Helwani's analysis together suggest that a strategically timed UFC comeback could be imminent, with all parties seemingly motivated to make it happen. Moving on to another news. Ilia Topuria was recently involved in a negotiation controversy regarding a potential fight against Islam Makhachev. According to Topuria's manager, Molly Kawa, the UFC's initial financial offer for the matchup was far below expectations, leading the team to decline the fight. As a result, the promotion instead booked Topuria against Justin Gaethje. Earlier reports suggested that the fight between Topuria and Makhachev fell through due to a hand injury sustained by Makhachev. However, the exact reasons remain somewhat unclear, with both fighters exchanging public statements. Topuria accused Makhachev of ducking the fight, while Makhachev countered by suggesting that Topuria avoided the matchup. According to Kawa, when the UFC approached Topuria's team to confirm whether they would accept a fight with either Makhachev or Gaethje, Topuria immediately chose Makhachev. The decision was strategic, focusing on both competition and financial considerations. Kawa emphasized that the choice was not about fear or the difficulty of the opponent, but about maximizing the potential payout. Once Topuria's camp agreed to pursue the Makhachev fight, the UFC reportedly presented a proposed compensation fee. Kawa described the number as small and unacceptable, explaining that the team was expecting a deal reflecting the magnitude of the bout. Despite their willingness to fight Makhachev, the financial terms offered did not meet expectations and negotiations stalled. Kawa indicated that after rejecting the initial offer, there was no further communication from the UFC regarding revised terms. Topuria's team had hoped for a figure appropriate for a high-profile matchup, but the initial proposal was insufficient, effectively derailing the fight. This situation highlights the complex interplay of scheduling, injuries, and financial negotiations that often influence UFC matchmaking at the highest level. Ultimately, the fight was redirected, and Topuria faced Gaethje instead, leaving fans to speculate about what could have been had the financial terms met the fighter's expectations. Moving on to another news. Paddy Pimblett recently shared his thoughts on the upcoming Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje matchup, as well as details about his own return to the Octagon. Pimblett expressed that fans should not underestimate Gaethje, predicting that the bout could produce a major upset despite the expectations favoring Topuria. He emphasized that both fighters are likely to enter the fight with maximum intensity, each aiming to assert dominance and secure a victory. Pimblett also provided insight into his own comeback timeline following his loss to Justin Gaethje at UFC 324. He confirmed that he has resumed training at full capacity, dismissing any suggestions of a prolonged hiatus. He indicated that he is prepared to fight as soon as the UFC calls, ideally targeting a high-profile European matchup. Potential opponents mentioned include Benoit St. Denis, or even a major contest against Charles Oliveira, which would allow him to climb back toward title contention. Regarding the Topuria versus Gaethje fight, Pimblett noted that Topuria had already indicated a return around June, which aligns with the current schedule, while Gaethje has publicly stated his intention to continue competing at the highest level. Pimblett suggested that the stakes are high, particularly given that the fight takes place in front of Gaethje's home crowd, which could provide extra motivation for him to perform at his best. Pimblett concluded by reiterating his focus on his own next fight. While he plans to follow the Topuria versus Gaethje matchup closely, his immediate priority is preparing for his upcoming bout, which he expects to be scheduled around June or July. Fans can anticipate a fully prepared and motivated Pimblett returning to the Octagon with significant momentum.